Hopefully, all you folks have your water and your heart rate monitors are getting ready to train. Is the hours between 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. I consider them I call them the power hours. But actually, they're hours. More importantly, the hours of clarity. Uh, and the times that we're living in today, there's a lot of noise. I would even say toxic pollution. You can't even really hear, or you can't maintain the voice of focus, especially when it comes to personal health, uh, personal transformation, doing the things that you know you are called to do that are evident to you to transform yourself, even at a basic level for health. So this morning, I just wanted to talk about and just discuss and explore what overweight is and what obesity is. This is one person's perspective and experience as a personal trainer and someone and a professional chef and a foodie, but also someone that comes from a direct family, generational, multi generational experience of morbid obesity, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, witnessing a lot of narcotics abuse, weed, alcohol, drugs, heroin, crack. That's the background that I come in. That's the eyesight that I have from my personal experience. And I wanted to this morning talk about that because my mind is extremely clear between the hours of 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. So in any event, if you're new to this channel, welcome on Body Culinary, personal trainer, chef, mother, napkin, one woman. Shout out to you, whatever your expression is. Today I wanted to talk about what obesity is an unhealthy weight, an unhealthy weight. I'm not here to tell you not to love yourself, but that's ridiculous because you have to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, or if you don't feel affection, and I like to make distinctions. If you don't feel affection for yourself, that's the problem. And we are in a time today, whereas, and I like to talk about going through the back door, where we are being marketed products to purchase at breakneck speed. You can't even keep up with all the clothes. You're getting storage rooms for all the clothes and stuff. And I like nice things and I like wealth. But I want to discuss what obesity really is. Now, I'm known as a person that likes to have fun. I like to be joyful. I like to be pleasant. And sometimes people can get that misconstrued. I even got that misconstrued as one time. Somebody that's drawn towards quote unquote religion and spirituality from a very, very young age. I want to talk about balance, especially as a woman coming from a background of obesity. I've had the thyroid, I love to eat. And also, and I share this a lot, I've even had a client that says that I shouldn't share, but I'm going to share it, right? I come from a pattern where I know what it's like to eat myself so I feel like my stomach is gonna pop. Now, fortunately, I've discovered movement at a young age as a form of therapy, as a form of therapy. Before I ever thought of looking cute, I discovered movement as a form of therapy that I could administer to myself, even when folks did not want to come or weren't interested in coming to move with me. That was something before I had a big savvy language to articulate it. I could have a direct experience of personal power, of release of stress, of calming myself with nature, of going to the park. But when I look in contrast to the generations of women around me, and wondering as a child, like, what is that? Why? I didn't know facts, but an unhealthy amount of weight, a dangerously unhealthy amount of weight to where I had to go to get the needles for my grandma every day for her to administer insulin for herself. And I was wondering, why did she do that? Am I going to have to do that? Watching one of my young cousins die from cancer, right? I want to call it what it is. Even in this era of body positivity, let's be clear and make the distinction. It is depression, it is anger, and it is sadness. That's what it is. It's a manifestation. It is a physical manifestation of disappointment, sadness, and more so complacency. We've gotten used to it. This is just the way it is. It's marketed to us. We're conditioned that as women, as we get older, this is just what it is. You're going to become overweight. And I get it. I'm a mom. I got stretch marks to prove it. My breasts are not firm mangoes anymore. They're healthy, right? But I've experienced motherhood. But we're sold this narrative that we have to become unhealthily overweight. And when you travel inside other countries and working with different cultures, that is the narrative that's sold to us, that we must become unhealthily overweight. That's just the life cycle, of a woman. And that never sat right with me. And I remember asking my mom and my grandma, it just occurred to me one time to ask them, what did you ever want to be when you were young, when you were my age? Did you ever want to be a dancer? Did you want to be a ballerina? Did you want to be an astronaut? What did you ever want to do? And it was rare to have, sometimes people would shush me away, or that silly girl, or why am I asking those kinds of questions? Where are the dreams fully expressed? Where's the artistic expression? As a mother that has taken my child to lots of extracurricular activities, right? Because as moms spend a good portion of our hard-earned money to make sure our children get developed. Tap dance, capoeira, languages, speed reading. Often when I would take my son to these different classes, I would see the mothers sitting off to the side. And I was thinking, like, they need to put some classes over here. Where's the classes for the adults? And I watched the women, mostly the women, sitting to the side, maybe eating snacks. Now you see on the cell phone. And it's energetically, if you look at the women, I'm like, the women, the mothers need the relief, the creative expression just as much as the children. Because I know also as a mother, a lot of times the unmanaged stress is sometimes it comes out onto the children. Sometimes when you don't even think about it, a moment of rage, little rage that probably sounds politically incorrect, comes out onto the children. And now we have TikTok. Now you can hear lots of mothers or people, humans, saying what before you would never hear is considered politically incorrect. You have a lot of women expressing their frustrations at motherhood, or they didn't know what they were getting into, or the frustrations of being single, raising alone, the stresses economically. Let's look at what obesity and eating mindlessly, right? What it really is, rather than beating ourselves up, it's the complacency that has an energetic, that has an energy to it. It has a feeling to it. It has a tone. And the cheap substitution for being fully expressed and being able to enjoy your body is chips, half a chicken and pork fried rice with extra duck sauce, Coca-Cola, Entenmann's, Little Debbie cakes, vegan Oreos, the 3-pack, wash it down with vanilla Vitasoy. Ask me how I know. It is depression. It is complacency. And what is interesting is that this narrative, we pass it down to our children. We share it with women, other women, at baby showers. Baby showers have become glutton fest. It's become glutton fest, a socially acceptable get high fest. And what usually comes after that is we're rubbing our knees. That's what I see the older women do, comparing the medications that we're taking and talking about, talking about trauma bonding. Who has the worst injury? Never considering, I don't know how it's in my mind, right, where fitness or being able to be independent and to be able to defend myself, to move, to run, jump, and play, that is such a core value because out here in this jungle, if you can't fend for yourself, you're in trouble. And also to be able to have the freedom to move my body, to not be in a prison. Many of us may not consider that we're in prisons in our own bodies, right? In the coaching that we do on Sunday, we do a lot of education, right? To put some numbers behind this business of the body, right? So that we can understand if we are in a crisis, there are numbers attached to this business called the body. So while body positivity is being marketed at certain demographics, right? Because this is politically incorrect. But I've heard some sayings that I'm just going to say it. Poor people have a lot of SEX, right? Or you'll hear a lot of impoverished people say, I don't have money to eat. Yet it's very common to see very lower income folks, a lot of obesity, right? And if you look inside of a lot of the shopping carts, it's not usually teeming with fruits and vegetables. I've often said that I want to go like Jesus and throw the tables over in the church, these mega churches, where we've got so much scent, makeup, wigs, weave on, but yet we could glorify, roll on the floor, holy water, olive oil. We're looking fantastic. I mean, we got the best outfits, yet we're using a lot of the makeup to cover up the lack of health, which I think is quite manipulative for the educated pastors, but that's just my opinion. So a lot of the obesity is actually not, it's dishonesty. And if this don't apply to you, let it fly. But I'm gonna call it, it's a lack of honesty. And I also say with some compassion, I realized the previous generation, they didn't have the tools. They didn't have calorie counters. They didn't have MyFitnessPal. They didn't have heart rate monitors. All they had was church. They didn't have therapy. They didn't have My Crappy Childhood Fairy. They didn't have Dr. Tracy Marks. They didn't have tracks. I mean, before that, gardening was like, nobody really gave the farmer any crops, right? People were running away from farming because farming doesn't make you poor and you were struggling. People had to run out of the South. Or if you think of Brazil, there was a lot of suffering and disconnection. So it makes sense that a lot of the previous generations wanted to get as far away from farming as possible and get an office job. But I'm here, I invite you to consider if you are somebody carrying a lot of weight, excess unhealthy weight, which has a specific behavior inside the body. Excess unhealthy weight, if you ever ate chopped meat, which I used to eat, that's visceral fat wrapping around your organs, which is dangerous. The stomach is small. So we're carrying unhealthy amounts of adipose tissue around the midsection. That is a precursor. That means it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. One or perhaps all of the comorbidities is coming to knock at your door to announce itself. And what are the comorbidities? They are the diseases that run in packs. You usually see one, two, or three of them. Diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. You hear these terms all the time. What does that mean? That means the organs are failing. There's no place else to put the excess calories of fuel that we're eating indiscriminately. And usually it's not calories coming from broccoli, lettuce, aloe, bitter herbs, things that heal the kidneys, the liver, and the organs. It's usually, I'm going to call it, substances masquerading as food. It's got high amounts of flavor, just like, indiscriminate, uncaring, intimate relations. A few minutes, seconds of pleasure. But once it moves past this throat, your cells know the difference. The body is failing, the organs are failing under being constantly accosted, constantly violated by these substances masquerading as it's drugs. But we're getting a dopamine hit. The information is available now, but the pace that we're moving at with all this hypnotic music, and hypnotic food, between the music and the food, between the music and the food. I come from a culture where we did more, or my church, and the members of my church did more 40-day consecration fast. Everybody's claiming Jesus. And I have never seen so much morbid obesity with all of these fasts. Does it ever occur to anyone that something is missing? We're going to church to feel better, for comfort, for fellowship. But somehow the collective, our finances and our health does not seem to change. So I invite you to consider the conflict of interest. And I invite you to consider, perhaps even whip out your journal and consider the complacency. This is just the way it is. So many of us are resigned to, this is what it's going to be. And not really thinking about the second half of our life. The trajectory is powerful, addictive, pain medications, limited mobility, and type 3. We're up to type 6 now, but type 3 is official. dementia. That is the progression of type 2 diabetes. Type 3 is dementia. I saw a saying the other day, and I'm going to leave it this because we're getting ready to train. Because we train because of how it makes us feel. And I'm here to tell you that anger and rage, it gets a bad rap. It's energy. It's a natural response for injustice and violation. What do you do with that energy? Do you think it disappears? Check out the book. You can get the audio book, The Body Keeps Score. What do you think happens with all of the mishandling of your body? You know, you just gotta check, you gotta go to work, you gotta keep it moving. Do you think that your subconscious forgets all of that stuff? I invite you to consider your movement, your daily personal movement practice. You can call it exercise, whatever you want to call it. I invite you to consider immediately implementing it. Why? Because this therapy is something that you do have a positive control over. It's therapy that you can administer to yourself to shake off the complacency. This is just the way it is. Because if you're resolved to complacency, then you just sit there and let your body become more and more unhealthy. It's like, I'm okay with it. I'm peace and love and light. Anger and rage are emotions. They are natural responses. So it's not necessarily negative. And if you can transmute that energy, fire can burn something up and destroy it. It can also purify. So it gets a bad rap. We're not trained with what to do with these different emotions, right? I don't know about you. I need therapy every day to make me feel better. You take a look at what's going on. Now everything is not so covered up, right? And from the time you turn on these little stress boxes, they are triggering fright and fear. And I mentioned them several times. The basic human fears, fear of loss of love or never finding love, fear of death, fear of old age, fear of sickness, fear of criticism, which also manifests as fear of failure or not being good enough. All these different emotions. I'm sure I'm forgetting one. And poverty is the other one. These are basic human fears. And with all the entertainment and the class and the movie stars, you don't consider the things that we're laughing at causes us to be insensitive to our own pain, to our own emotions. And we laugh about a lot of stuff. If you really thought about it, you would be crying. We don't cry for ourselves. So I'm not sitting here telling you to cry. Maybe you need to cry to release some of that energy. It gets a bad rap. It's seen as weakness. But I invite you, I say sometimes when you train like a beast. Train like a beast. I love to watch Flojo, the sprinters. I love watching athletes because it's an energy. It's an energy. It's an energy. I can't be in what I call stinking thinking or a bad mood while I'm jumping up and down or while I'm doing push-ups. It is a shortcut to giving your body and your subconscious evidence of personal power, your ability to transform and transmute depression and disappointment. And most of all, injustice, personal injustice. You can't go burn down the business. A lot of times you may not have the physical or the financial power to, as my godfather would say, inflict a consequence. He used to tell me, Kwasa, power is only when you can inflict a consequence on your adversary. And so you can see now with powerlessness, you have trolls that come on the internet to try to get a rise out of somebody. When people violate a child, it comes from a place of powerlessness. So I am under no illusion that I'm about to change the whole world. But I do know in terms of what I can do for myself and what I stand for is therapy that I can administer to myself, that my mother didn't have that. And there are a lot of people that are far gone. They're far gone. So many of us will just put the makeup on. And there's nothing wrong with makeup. But I'm saying when you look at the context of where it's coming from, is competitions to cover up ill health and to cover up depression. Who's going to do the best job of it? And you can also see, here's my personal litmus test, especially because I have young flowers out there. The litmus test is, are you putting yourself in harm's way? Forget us typing away on the internet. When you are by yourself, if you just listen to your own divine onboard intelligence, are you putting your organs in harm's way? Your stomach, the stomach is small, the midsection, right? Are you putting your reproductive organs in harm's way? Are you making good decisions for yourself? Are you really cautious with your body? Are you protective of yourself? If you're not, why not? I invite you to consider unhealthy weight, not your curve, unhealthy weight, to sit there and to allow injustice to yourself. That's a problem. That's a split mind. That's cognitive dissonance. And it's at an all-time high. I invite you, it doesn't have to be me, I invite women and whoever to invest in yourself, to stop being cheap with yourself, to get yourself a mental, emotional coach, get you some therapy. In addition, therapy is not church. You don't have no problem going to church. Get yourself some therapy so you can get some communication skills. You can get some honesty skills. You can process old trauma because that's what because there's no sweetness in your life. You're not dancing, you're not singing, you're not writing, you're not creating. And just because you become 30, 40, 50, because you're a mom, all of who we are is not just mother. It's just one role that we play. We're whole human beings and we deserve joy before we exit this human suit. I invite you to consider unhealthy overweight. Why do you tolerate it? It says something subconsciously about tolerating injustice and why you may not be able to go back and change the past. Are you going to administer justice to yourself by allowing yourself to experience everything you came here to experience in your human suit? The obesity, the ill health, the smoking is dumb. Let me just call it this morning. It's dumb. When you see us doing stuff that makes not one iota of sense, I'm humbled by how easily programmed we are. We're committing suicide like it's fashionable. Yeah, it's working for me. I invite you to consider implementing practices that are therapeutic to yourself, that you have access to. Garden slash nature, community garden. If you're looking for excuses to stay complacent, there's no shortage of companies or persons willing to take your money and to exploit you and to give you a pat on the back for taking more abuse and for co-signing on being abusive to yourself. The movement practice is uncomfortable, but I guarantee you, I have never, ever, 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 not one time in over 35 years, I've never regretted not one personal movement practice. Never. The way it makes me feel. It is the foundation of my esteem. That deep, hard breathing, feeling my body. You'll never, ever regret. So we're going to get into this movement practice. Shout out to my early risers because there's no joke to get up early to pay yourself first with your non-renewable resource of your time. So I'm going to create a great day on purpose. Good morning, ladies. I'm in the upper room this morning. I don't know, something is on my spirit this morning.